My name's Julian. I'm 29, and for the past 7 years, I've been the responsible one in my family. Not by choice, mind you, but because someone had to be. Someone had to step up when my dad's health started declining. Someone had to pick up the pieces after my mom passed unexpectedly, leaving behind a house full of silence, a fridge full of expired yogurt, and a man who thought dignity was something others owed him. That someone turned out to be me. It started slowly, like these things always do. My dad, a once proud mechanic with grease under his fingernails and a stubborn streak as thick as engine oil, began forgetting things, doctor's appointments, whether he'd eaten, if he'd taken his insulin. He'd always been tough, the kind of guy who'd scoff at prescriptions and call a checkup a scam by the pharma folks. But after Mom died, it was like someone had pulled the battery out of him. He didn't fight anymore. He didn't do much of anything. I was 22 then, still in my last year of college, working 2 part-time jobs to keep the lights on both in my apartment and in his house. My older sister, Claire, had moved to Seattle years earlier and made it clear she wasn't coming back for anything less than a funeral. She sent cards on birthdays and thinking of you texts every few months, which was about as useful as a chocolate teapot. So it fell on me. At first, it was small things, picking up groceries after class, driving Dad to his checkups, making sure the house didn't fall into complete disrepair. I didn't mind. He was grieving, and so was I. We'd sit in the quiet of the living room sometimes, him staring blankly at the TV, me scrolling through lecture notes, both pretending the silence wasn't suffocating. But as the months turned into years, something began to shift. He became sharper, not in a good way. He started making jabs, small, bitter comments that slipped through his teeth like steam from a cracked pipe. Didn't think you'd turn into such a soft boy. Or, your mother never babied me like this. I chalked it up to grief, or maybe the medication's messing with his mood. But I kept coming back. Every week, every Sunday with groceries. Every month with a check to cover whatever the insurance didn't. After graduation, I got a decent job in IT and rented a place nearby, but it never felt like I left. If I wasn't at work, I was at Dad's. Mowing the lawn, fixing the leaky faucet, cleaning out the expired food he'd let sit in the fridge for weeks. I even paid off some of his debts, old medical bills, late utilities, and one shady loan he never explained. He never thanked me. Not once. The most I got was a grunt when I handed him the receipts. Still, I told myself it was fine. That this was what sons did. You step up when your parents fall down. You carry the weight, even when they forget how to say thank you. But it started eating away at me, little by little, like rust on a good piece of metal. Then came the family dinner. It was Claire's idea, of all people. She was flying in for Dad's birthday and insisted we all get together like old times. I should have seen the warning signs right away. Her suddenly acting like the doting daughter after years of silence, messaging me about dinner plans like we were some sitcom siblings instead of two people who'd barely spoken in 5 years. But I agreed. I figured maybe she wanted to make amends. Maybe Dad needed to see both his kids under one roof again. Maybe I needed it too. The night of the dinner, I showed up early, as usual. Claire was already there, wine bottle in hand, fake smile plastered across her face. Dad was sitting in his recliner, dressed nicer than I'd seen him in months. He even cracked a joke when I walked in. Something about how I finally learned how to shave properly. For a moment, it felt okay. We sat down at the table. Claire had cooked, or, more likely, picked up catered food and threw away the containers. And Dad was in a strangely good mood. He laughed, told old stories, even clinked his glass in a weak but well-meant toast. I let myself believe, for one foolish second, that maybe things were turning around. Then Claire said, "Julian's been such a help all these years, haven't you?" And the room went quiet. I didn't expect praise. I didn't even expect agreement. But what I got felt like a slap across the face. Dad laughed, not kindly, but bitterly, and said, "Help? That boy's been a leech. Always here, always hovering. You think it's noble? It's embarrassing. A real man wouldn't waste his life playing nursemaid. He'd have a family, a purpose, not just hanging around me like a bad smell." I froze, my fork halfway to my mouth. Claire opened her lips, then shut them again. She glanced at me, then down at her plate. And Dad just kept going. "You think I'm proud of that? Of being the guy whose kid never left home, never made something of himself? You want to praise him? Go ahead. But don't pretend he's anything but a disappointment. He's a disgrace. I remember the sound of my heartbeat in my ears. The way the room seemed to narrow around me, like someone had turned off the oxygen. I stood up, slowly, calmly, reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the stack of receipts I always carried. Medical bills, pharmacy costs, grocery runs, hospital copays. Thousands of dollars worth of sacrifice, printed in black and white. I placed them on the table in front of him. He looked at them like they were trash. Then I looked at Claire. Her eyes were glassy, but she didn't say a word. I didn't either. I just turned, walked toward the door, and let the silence follow me like a shadow. And that's where it really began. I didn't slam the door. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me crack. But when I stepped out into the night air, I felt something inside me snap, clean and silent, like a thread finally breaking under too much weight. That drive home was a blur. I couldn't remember a single traffic light, not one song on the radio. I just remember gripping the wheel tighter than I needed to and blinking too fast to keep the tears back. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay there, staring at the ceiling in my one-bedroom apartment, the only space that truly belonged to me. My phone buzzed once, a text from Claire. He didn't mean it. I stared at it for a while, then turned my phone face down. It was the kind of lie you tell yourself when you don't want to deal with what's real. But I was done lying to myself. The next morning, I took the day off work and did something I hadn't done in years. I stayed still. I didn't run errands. I didn't check in on my dad. I didn't clean, repair, or manage anything that didn't belong to me. And it felt wrong, like I'd missed a step and was falling, even though I was finally standing still. By noon, Claire called. I let it go to voicemail. Then she texted again. He's just old school. You know how he is. Don't take it personally. And that was the final straw. Because here's what nobody wanted to admit. It wasn't just how he was. It was a choice. A lifetime of choices, actually. My father had always been like that. Proud, hard, cruel when he didn't get his way. Mom used to soften it, redirect it, sometimes cover for it. But after she passed, all that ugliness came pouring out unfiltered. And we let him. I let him. I let him guilt me into servitude. I let him make me feel like being kind was weakness. I paid his bills and carried his life on my back while he tore down mine one insult at a time. So, I started making changes. First, I called the clinic and let them know I wouldn't be covering his copays anymore. We'll need his signature to transfer billing responsibility, the receptionist told me. That's fine, I said. He's a grown man. Then I called the pharmacy, removed my card on file, and blocked the auto refill service I'd set up 2 years ago. I made a list of every subscription, every bill, every account tied to my name that serviced his life. Electricity, internet, the food delivery service I'd secretly arranged under his name when he kept forgetting to eat. All of it. One by one, I shut them down or transferred the billing over. I left one envelope on his doorstep. It held a list of all the monthly expenses I'd been covering, the contact numbers he'd need to reinstate them, and a short note written in my neatest handwriting. I'm done playing the disappointment. Good luck managing what I've been holding up. I didn't sign it. I didn't need to. For the next week, I heard nothing. No calls. No texts. Not even a "how dare you" voicemail. Claire didn't message again either, probably because she knew she'd pushed too far. Or maybe she realized that without me propping him up, she might have to actually do something for once. Then came the second Sunday. I was at home, halfway through a movie I'd meant to watch for years, when someone knocked on my door. I opened it to find my uncle standing there, Dad's older brother, someone I hadn't seen since Mom's funeral. He looked uncomfortable, like he was holding back words that didn't sit right in his mouth. "Can I come in?" he asked. I let him. He sat down slowly, looked around my apartment, then finally spoke. "Your dad called me. Said the power got shut off. He's mad. Said you abandoned him." I didn't respond. He looked at me, squinting like he was trying to figure something out. "Is it true you were paying for everything?" I nodded. He sat back in his chair, let out a long breath. He never said a word. Always acted like he was handling it himself. Even bragged about it sometimes. I didn't say anything. What was there to say? Then he said something that stuck with me. "You know, Julian, some people can't handle being helped. Makes them feel small. So they lash out to feel big again." I shrugged. "Then he'll have to learn to live small." My uncle chuckled, not unkindly. "I guess he will." He didn't stay long. And after he left, I felt lighter. Not fixed, not healed, but lighter. Like maybe the part of me that had been stuck in place was finally starting to move. The silence didn't last, of course. The following Friday, I got a call from an unknown number. I didn't recognize the voice at first. It was hoarse, low, tired. Julian. A pause. It's your father. I waited. I got to the bills. And your note. Another pause. You really just walked away? Another silence. I didn't raise you to be like this. I smiled bitterly at that. No, you didn't, I said, and hung up. He called again the next day, and the day after, left messages that started angry, then turned pleading, then bitter again. I didn't answer. I wasn't ready, but I knew something was coming. Because men like my father, they don't take silence as an answer. And sure enough, 2 weeks later, he showed up at my apartment unannounced. And what he had to say? Well, that's when things took a turn I never expected. I heard the knock before I saw him. It was a Saturday morning, not too early, but early enough that I was still in sweatpants, coffee mug in hand, debating whether to do laundry or let the pile win again. I didn't check the peephole. I should have. I just opened the door, and there he was. My father. He looked older, not in the usual way, but like the weight I'd carried for him all these years had finally dropped directly onto his shoulders. His hair was more unkempt than usual, white stubble patchy across his jaw. His jacket hung looser than it used to. But his eyes, those were the same. Sharp, proud, guarded. The kind of eyes that only softened when Mom was around. And she wasn't. I didn't say anything. Just leaned on the doorframe and took a sip of coffee. He cleared his throat. Can I come in? I raised an eyebrow. Why? He shifted. Because we need to talk. Funny. You didn't think we needed to talk when you called me a disgrace. That hit him. I saw it in the twitch of his jaw, the flicker in his gaze. He looked down, then back up, straightening as if bracing against a wind only he could feel. I was angry, he said. You embarrassed me. In front of your sister. I gave a dry laugh. No. You embarrassed me. In front of the only family I have left. After everything I did, everything I paid for, everything I carried, you acted like I was a parasite. His lips parted like he wanted to argue. But he didn't. He just stood there, jaw clenched. I wasn't sure what I expected. An apology? A breakdown? Maybe some dramatic plea for forgiveness? But he didn't give me any of that. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He held it out. You want me to handle my life? Fine. I applied for state support. I called the VA, talked to the insurance people. Even Claire helped me set up some automatic payments. It's not much, but I'm figuring it out. I didn't take the paper. Just looked at it. Then he said the one thing I didn't expect. I had no idea how much you were doing until it stopped. I didn't want to know. Because if I knew, I'd have to admit you were right. And I don't do that easily. My heart thudded once hard. I looked at him, really looked, and saw, for the first time in years, a crack in the concrete wall he'd built around himself. But I stayed silent. He lowered the paper. Claire told me I should say sorry, he added, almost as an afterthought. But I'm not going to do that just because she said so. I'll say it because I want to. He took a shaky breath. I'm sorry, Julian. I was wrong. There it was. And yet, I didn't feel the satisfaction I thought I would. No rush of justice. No inner glow of vindication. Just emptiness. Like the apology came too late to fill the space it had carved out. I didn't respond right away. I just stepped back and opened the door wider. Do you want coffee? I asked. He looked surprised, then nodded. We sat in silence for a long time. He at the kitchen table, me across from him. 2 mugs of coffee steaming between us, the silence heavier than the words we hadn't said. After a while, he spoke again. I want to fix this. I looked at him. Fix what? He gestured vaguely. Us. I gave a tired sigh. You don't fix years of silence and insults with one apology. I know, he said quietly. But maybe I can start by telling you something I should have said a long time ago. I raised an eyebrow. He looked me dead in the eyes and said, Your mother was proud of you. So was I? I just didn't know how to show it. I thought if I pushed you, insulted you, you'd rise above it. Prove me wrong. I didn't realize I was grinding you down. I looked away. My throat was tight. I didn't need to be pushed, I said. I needed a father. He flinched. And for a moment, I thought he might cry. But he didn't. He just sat there, eyes wet but stubbornly dry, nodding slowly like he'd finally heard what I'd been trying to scream for years. We didn't fix things that day. There were no hugs, no tears, no sudden bursts of understanding. But we talked. and that was something. Still, I kept my guard up. I wasn't ready to forget the things he'd said, or how easily everyone else let him get away with it. Then, a week later, Claire called. "Dad told me he visited you," she said. "He said you were civil." I didn't respond. She sighed. "Look, I know he was awful, but I think he's trying now." "Trying doesn't erase what he did," I said. "Or what you didn't do." That caught her off guard. "What's that supposed to mean?" "You saw how he treated me," I said flatly. "You heard the things he said, and you just let it happen." There was silence on the line. Then she said, quietly, "I didn't know how to stop it." "You didn't have to stop it," I said. "You just had to stand next to me." She didn't answer. But later that week, she showed up at my door too. And what she brought with her, that's when the real reckoning started. Claire stood outside my door holding a weathered photo album and an envelope. She didn't look like the corporate, composed version of herself that I'd grown used to seeing on video calls. Today she looked more like the version of her I used to know. Hoodie, no makeup, tired eyes. The same girl who used to climb trees with me in the backyard and steal Mom's cookies from the oven when they were still too soft to hold their shape. "I need to say something," she said. No greeting, no warm-up. Just those words, strained and raw. I stepped aside and let her in. She didn't sit, just stood near the window and looked around my apartment like it was the first time she'd really seen it. Maybe it was. "I thought I left," she said, her voice trembling. "When I moved out. When I got my job, got married, left everything behind. I thought I escaped." She turned toward me. "But I didn't, did I? I just handed it all to you." I stayed silent. She placed the photo album on the counter. "Mom's. I found it when I was helping Dad sort through the attic. Thought you should have it." I opened it, slowly. Page after page of childhood memories. Me at the park, me blowing out candles, me holding up a crooked science fair trophy. And in every picture, there was Mom's handwriting in the corner. Julian's big win. Julian learns to ride. Julian's first haircut, cried the whole time. The ache in my chest was sudden and sharp. I hadn't seen these pictures in years. Claire watched me turn the pages. "She loved you. You know that, right?" "I know." She hesitated, then held out the envelope. "This is the deed to Dad's house. He's transferring it. To you." I blinked. "What?" "He said it was the least he could do. Said he wouldn't have it if you hadn't kept him afloat." I opened the envelope. It was real. Signed, notarized, with everything in order. I stared at the paper like it might vanish if I looked away. Claire looked down. "I also got Dad to write you a letter. I don't know what it says, but I told him it was the only way I'd agreed to help him manage his accounts going forward." I didn't open the letter right then. I was afraid of what it might say, or what it might not. Claire finally sat down. She rubbed her hands over her jeans. "I'm sorry, Julian. I know I left you with all of it. And when Dad said those things at dinner, I should have spoken up. I should have defended you. Why didn't you?" She looked ashamed. "Because I still wanted him to love me. I thought if I stayed quiet, stayed the good one, maybe I'd be enough." There it was. The truth. The same disease that had infected our family for years. This need to earn love that should have come freely. This belief that we had to fight for scraps of affection like dogs under the table. "I don't want to be that person anymore," she said. I nodded, still staring at the deed. "He's not going to change overnight," she added. "But he's trying. And I think he's scared." "Of what?" "Of losing the only person who ever gave a damn enough to stay." I didn't respond. Not for a while. But I finally said, "I'm not going back to being the one who carries it all." "You shouldn't have to," she said. "We'll split the care from now on. Bills, errands, visits. 50-50. It wasn't a perfect fix, but it was a start." After she left, I finally opened Dad's letter. It wasn't long. Just a few lines. "Julian, I didn't say it when your mother passed. I didn't say it when you put food in my fridge or paid for my meds or sat in that cold waiting room while they stuck me with needles I didn't understand. I didn't say it when I should have. But thank you. You were more of a man than I ever taught you to be. And I'm sorry. For all of it. Dad." I reread it 3 times. Then I folded it carefully, slid it back into the envelope, and tucked it into the photo album between the pages of my childhood. The next month passed slowly, but with less tension. I met Claire every other Sunday at Dad's house. We divided tasks. I handled paperwork and medical calls. She handled the shopping and scheduled visits. Dad didn't push. He didn't snap. He didn't insult. He asked about my work sometimes. He started saying, "Thank you." Once, he even cooked. It wasn't good, oversalted eggs and undercooked toast. but it was an effort. And for someone like him, effort was everything. He gave me space, too. Space to breathe, to live, to reclaim the pieces of my life that weren't wrapped around his. I picked up painting again, something I hadn't done since college. I started going out more. I stopped checking my phone every 10 minutes expecting a crisis. Things weren't perfect, but they were real, and they were better. On my 30th birthday, Claire organized a small dinner, just the three of us. Dad gave me a watch. Not new, not expensive, but his. The one he wore every day to the shop when I was a kid. The one I used to think made him invincible. He didn't say anything when he handed it to me, just nodded once. And for the first time in years, I felt seen. That night, after they left, I stood in my kitchen, fingers tracing the watch's edges, and thought about how far we'd come. How much had broken. How much had slowly, painfully been put back together. I wasn't the family's servant anymore. I was Julian, a son, a brother. And finally, after all these years, I was free.